Something else I wanted to mention is, with these speed runs I watch a lot, I get really sick of the bullshit where they'll put world record or WR in the video title, but then when it's not a world record anymore, they'll change the shit. They won't take that out, but they'll change it to say former world record. And it's like, you mean not world record. It's like, take the shit out the fucking video title, all right? Like, we both know that you're just putting it there because motherfuckers will find it searching for WR world record or whatever, and you just want to artificially increase the presence of your fucking video. It's like, if it's not a world record anymore, then fuck off with that shit, all right? You're being a piece of shit and you fucking know it. Like humans really will just false advertise with everything, won't they? All their deceit and manipulation and conniving shit that they do, they can't even stop the shit with fucking speed runs, right? And I mean that's before all the ones that constantly get caught cheating, right? But looking at all these reviews of, it's like I've been watching speed runs as well. Like anytime I go through like a phase with a game, every year or two or three or whenever it is, I most of these games I'll have sort of like a cycle. Every year or a couple years or whatever, I'll replay it. And then when I do that, I'll go look at the reviews or analyses, or speed runs or all that. A lot of times I'll just watch the older speed runs that I have nostalgia for. So I don't necessarily watch speed runs to see the fastest time per se. Most of the time now I watch older ones because those are the ones I watched 20 years ago or whatever. But I'll sort of, become like immersed in a video game like that. And so I've been watching a lot of reviews on, Silent Assassin and Contracts. And one of the recurring things is always how terrible the AI is, or just how unpredictable the games are. But when it comes to Silent Assassin and Contracts, the main thing is just limiting the frame rate. And Silent Assassin is probably the worst of the three, right? If we're including Codename 47. But with Silent Assassin, another big one, and I, if they show enough footage, like I can actually tell which way it goes. But a lot of these modern reviews probably didn't even play the games when they were new, so they're probably not even aware of this. It's like Half-Life Source reviews of it talking about how phenomenally awful it is, and yet when it was brand new, it really wasn't that bad, right? Yeah, it had some bugs to it, but it was the 2013 Steam pipe update that totally killed it, and that's where most of the shit that people will talk about now comes from. It's like that with Hitman 2, where most people who play it now play it through the Steam version. And then the problem is that the Steam one is updated to the, what I call the censorship patch. So if you look at your game and it says a patch version past, V1.01, you have the censored version. And, aside from the problem that, it censors stuff, which is total bullshit, it also changes how the game works, right? It basically introduces more bugs into the game. So like with Silent Assassin, for example, one of the reviews I watched, he was talking about how on tracking Hayamoto that the fucking maid bitch won't come back to get the bowl of food because you can like take fugu or whatever fish and like poison it and also put the tracker in it. So like he'll eat it, he'll have the tracker in him and then he'll die. So it's another one of those levels that's pretty easy to run on pro. If you use disguises, I normally do it like that. Now most, like I said, I'm pretty good at the games, but I'm not good enough to do suit only runs really. That one suit only would be a bit of a pain in the ass probably. But, that's another one. It's like, you get in there, poison it, put the tracker in, and it basically just, go back to the start of the level, because that's also the exit, and just stand there waiting for it to be over, right? Um, but he was talking about in this review that the maid bitch never shows up to take the food to him. Well, like, I've actually tested that, and I know for sure that the sensor patch has to cause that, because I have only ever had that happen on the Steam version. But on the GOG version, right, or just, you can probably get you can get a downgrade patch, I think, for a Steam version. You can probably fix it like that if you have Steam, but, on 1.01 it doesn't happen. I've never had it happen. But then the majority of the rest of the bugs with the older Hitman games, it really just boils down to the frame rate. I seen one of the reviewers say that he heard so many people mention that, and like, whatever, as if he didn't try it or something, but heard people talk about it. But it definitely works. But there's a lot of quirks with the AI of the Hitman games, particularly the earlier ones, and yeah, a lot of it boils down to, like, this one review I saw. He was talking about how, Hitman 2 was supposed to be more realistic, and I pretty much agreed with his stance on it. Like, I don't know, like, anathema in that game, like the first mission, is, kind of like truly anathema to the original game. Because in Codename 47, disguises were basically invisibility cloaks, right? If you had the right disguise for the area, you were good. I mean, unless you started shooting or something, you were essentially infallible. And it feels like the second game was sort of like a response to that. So anathema, as the name suggests, is basically anathema to the first game. And on that first level, disguises are essentially worthless, right? But it makes sense if you think about it. Some Don, some mob boss living in a, like a fucking mansion or whatever, with a bunch of personal bodyguards that probably also live there. Like, it would make sense that they would all know each other well enough to be able to tell if somebody was supposed to be there or not, right? Um, so the fact that they flip out so easily, yes, it's like I would call it unrealistically realistic. It's like, yes, I guess it is realistic, but you just don't expect a game to play like that, right? Um, and another good example is, his like second in command or whatever, or like some other guy, um, that's supposed to be his brother or something like that. If you try to disguise as them, they see through it instantly, right? That one should be, be beyond more obvious, because of course he would like recognize his own, like, fucking, capo or whatever the fuck they call him, right? Shit like that. But at the same time, I agree with that dude's stance that it's bullshit, right? But Silent Assassin, in a lot of ways, is almost like an inversion of the whole disguise or like stealth game idea. Because, like, if you actually try to sneak in the game, it's so abysmally slow. But yeah, Silent Assassin was most people, including mine, introduction to the series. I first played on the PS2 when I was like 11 or whatever. So I've been playing it for over 24 years. And, the first three Hitman games are the kind of thing to where, until you know what you're expected to do, you're probably just going to be pissed off and fucking hate it, right? I don't know. The Hitman games, like, I love them, but they feel like a sneeze that never finally happens, right? It's like, it always feels like there's just something missing, right? It's like, if only I could do this or that, if only I could, like, go to this area or something like that. Um, but without experience with a game, you're probably going to fuck up a lot because you just don't understand how it works. But like, the one of the things is that what most people, have problems with the tension meter in Silent Assassin. most of that is due to the frame rate. If you don't cap the frame rate to at the most 60, it's one of these things where it's kind of like Delta time. You see a ton of videos about that at this point. Everyone's finally found out about it. But it's one of those things, it's like frame rate dependent. And in the past, dude, nobody was playing that fucking game at 60 FPS, much less, 1,000 like you could play it now. But there's some degree of that. And so if you don't cap the frame rate, the tension meter spazzes out. Uh, NPCs will turn faster. That's why sometimes when they turn, they'll do this weird exorcist head thing because the head doesn't even keep up with how fast they turn. The logic and, like pathing will get desynced. That's the problem with the Hidden Valley trucks. Now in Hidden Valley, if you limit it to 60, sometimes it'll work for me, but not reliably. In my own testing, Hidden Valley, you have to limit it to like 30 FPS before the trucks will really work properly. Now, me, I don't personally give a fuck because, it's just a stupid route in my opinion, but there's a lot of meta to the game. So, having the right disguise for the area, but also to what degree they'll be able to recognize if you should be that, like if you're like one of them or not. But another one is, when guards are patrolling and they look side to side. In most games, characters will have their like cone of vision that is essentially oriented their like general direction. But in 40s, in the early, Hitman games, it actually follows which way their head is looking. So a lot of times when people say that they got, randomly spotted or whatever, really what happened was, the cone of view of the NPC just happened to it's like a polygon of your foot could get caught in like a milliradian of their fucking cone of view, and now you're spotted, right? But also a lot of times, another thing the game doesn't tell you is that there will be AI that they do that kind of looking side to side thing, but their animations don't indicate that. So there's, again, this non-deterministic thing of like, I mean, it's there, but you don't have a visual indication or like it won't reliably be synced up. And to some degree, that might also be frame rate dependent. But, there's a lot of intricacies of those games. And, like once you kind of, have an intuition for it, they become a lot easier. So I see a ton of speed runs where people will be like, oh, they cheated. And it's like, no, they didn't. I tried the same stuff and I was able to make it work. It's like Gunrunner Paradise on Codename 47, where if you kill the guys at the start, it says mission failed, but you can still complete the mission. Yeah, like I've done that. Like you can do that. It works. It just, however the game tracks that stuff in the actual mission is like separate from the score screen once it's over. And there's some weird proximity or timer based stuff going on with that level too, but you can totally make that work. A lot, like, I mean, I can't do it at actual speed run pace, but a lot of these tricks they do, it's like I've replicated it myself. But there's just so many oddities with the older games that, you know, they can be extremely frustrating, even if you're used to them. So many fucking runs that I'll try where otherwise it would be Silent Assassin, but I get to the screen and it's professional, and it's like what and it's like somehow you had a close encounter like this or that, right? And I mean, even how it determines shit like that is not obvious. Like I was watching a contracts run, and they said that the way close encounters work in that one, they have to point a gun at you or something. So there's a thing on the Li Hong assassination where it doesn't count as a close encounter because Li Hong has a sword, right? So he can't point it at you, so to speak. There's all sorts of just weirdness with those games, and that's part of the appeal. Blood Money was already kind of moving towards where they're at now as far as like true sandboxes, but that was another thing. The older games were more like, you know, a puzzle, and then the later ones were more like a sandbox. Like the early ones were more about figuring out what you were expected to do. whereas Blood Money introduced a lot of that kind of like free play type of